can see myself in the mirror behind her. I'm blooming. Everything about me looks rich and alive. Hair, skin, eyes. And that's how Tabitha is catching me. That's how she knows I'm falling again. Because falling feels like living. It feels like eating and drinking and breathing and running and flying. Why did I starve myself so long? Well, hello, welcome back to another monthly reading wrap up, and this time I am catching you up on all of the books that I read in the month of July. So let's start, like I always do, with sharing the scores on the doors in terms of what I actually read this month. So in terms of the book count, like I said, I read 18 books this month, and that was a total of 5,736 pages, which meant that I on average read about 185 pages per day, and that was up from the month before when it was averaging out about 150 pages. In terms of how I read the books, 14 of those were Kindle Unlimited, 2 were ebooks, 1 was an audiobook and 1 was an ARC. In terms of the types of book that I read, 5 of them were contemporary romances, 6 of them were mafia romances, I had an alien romance, 1 dark romance, 3 monster romances, 1 fantasy romance and 1 sci-fi. And then in terms of my star rating, I had 3 5-star books, 12 4-star books and 3 3-star reads. So the first book I finished in July was A Sweet Like Poison by Julia Wolfe. Now, you'll also remember at the beginning of July, I actually managed to get to Rare 23 London, which was a book signing event, and Julia Wolfe was there, and this was one of the books I'd pre-ordered, and I hadn't actually read it when I pre-ordered, and before the readathon I made the effort to read the books in the series leading up to this one, including this one, and also just showing off my signature there as well from Julia Wolfe from Rare 23 in London. So this is book 3 in the Savage You series. So in this one we're following, like I said, Lachlan and Elena. Now we've met Elena before in previous books, and she is kind of part of the friendship circle, but was also part of you know, the in girls, the mean girls in high school, and so she didn't have a great reputation at the start of this series. However, she's absolutely redeemed herself, now firmly part of the friendship group, but she does have her own secrets, quite a traumatic past, and so she's had quite a difficult experience with men generally. She finds it very hard to trust them, and although she is sexually active, she doesn't necessarily always have a great time in the bedroom, and has always struggled to achieve orgasm. So this is where Lachlan comes in, because again we've known Lachlan from the other books, and he's our very dark and brooding and handsome hero. He is a man of very few words, but he has quite the protective personality, and he loves nothing more than looking after the heroines in this series. Now, he's always been a bit standoffish with Elena because, like I said, she's sort of had a bit of a bad reputation, and he's not really interested in getting involved with what is perceived to be a bit of a mean girl. Plus, he is absolutely focused on his future, where he wants to move back to his family ranch and run the family ranch, and he's just away at university for his studies so he can go back and do that. So he's really not at all interested in having a relationship because due to kind of family issues himself, bad experience with his own parents, he is very reluctant to kind of fall in love, and knowing that he's going to move away. So he and Elena, when all their friends have gone away for the weekend, they kind of have a romantic tryst over the weekend. They are extremely attracted to one another, have an amazing time during this weekend, but they kind of both agree that it's just going to be kind of no strings attached, and just for a good time, and that's what they kind of tell each other. Now, Lachlan believes this, takes this at face value. Elena obviously has different ideas, different emotions, different feelings about kind of what transpires, and Lachlan does make several mistakes during this book. However, like I say, he is a dark and brooding hero of little words, and when he speaks we absolutely take notice, and he absolutely redeems himself for every mistake that he makes, and is absolutely one of the standout heroes in this series. So would highly recommend, like I say, 5 stars. Then after I finished Sweet Like Poison, I went straight on to read the final book in that series, book 4, Real Like Daydreams, also by Julia Wolfe, obviously, and like I say, book 4 in the Savage You series. Now this is another contemporary new adult romance following another hero from the friendship group that we've seen in the first 3 books, and this time we are getting Julian's story. Now Julian is very much a scarred and troubled hero. He was involved in a very serious accident in a previous book, and that's left him facially scarred, but also he has some physical disability because he struggles to walk, he's in a lot of pain, and he needs physiotherapy in order to kind of like help him through his pain and to build up the strength so that he can walk again. But currently he's walking with a cane, so he's really struggling with his recovery, and also he's kind of running out of money and his insurance won't pay for any more treatment. So he is sort of very angry. He has stepped away really from his friendship group. He has stopped speaking to his best friend, not really stopped speaking, but he's become a bit estranged from his best friend, and he is struggling. And that's where we meet Serafina. So she is again one of the girls from the friendship group that we kind of met in a previous book, and she is also a drummer in the marching band and really wants to make it to drum captain. In order to get the drum captain role in the next sort of semester at school, she needs the backing of the current drum captain, who, because everyone in the marching band will vote on the drum captain, and his voice has a lot of sway, and so she kind of wants to get on his good side. And he has a bit of a run-in with Julian in the early part of the book, and now this guy really wants to get revenge on Julian, and so he strikes up a deal with Serafina, and he basically says, get to know Julian, get him to go out with you, get him to fall in love with you, and then I want you to break his heart, and if you do that, I will vote for you and put in a good word for you, basically, for this marching band. Now Serafina is a really nice girl, so she's going to take this bet, but she isn't going to lie to Julian, and she tells him exactly what's going on and sort of says to him, will you fake date me? Pretend that we're going out so that this guy thinks that I am following through on the kind of bet that we made, and will you let me then split up with you next semester? And he says he's prepared to do this as long as she does something in return for him, which is to help him with his physiotherapy. And so kind of that's the arrangement they kind of strike between each other, and of course they are then in close proximity with one another, get to spend more time together, and their fake dating maybe becomes less fake at the end. And then after that I moved to something different, and I picked up Minx by Sophie Lark, and this is like a contemporary kind of erotic romance. It's a standalone that Sophie has just released. And in this one it kind of follows an escort. It's a bit of a billionaire romance, and it also involves pet play as well. I read this one on Kindle Unlimited and rated this one 4 stars. Overall I really enjoyed this book, and I found the storytelling very compelling, and also the characters extremely interesting. We're following Ramses and Blake in this one, and Ramses is a self-made billionaire. He comes very much from nothing and has very much worked his way to the top. He is extremely good with numbers. He's sort of in investments, and he very much follows the stock market and buys and sells shares and that sort of thing. Now Blake has also come from nothing, and she has also amassed quite a modest fortune compared to Ramses, but still extremely successful, and she's done this by becoming a high-class escort, and really she is using the knowledge that she gets from her very wealthy clients to also buy and sell shares. So she is extremely intelligent, very good with numbers. She's able to decipher patterns, and when she goes out with these men she overhears conversations. They give her insider information, and that helps her in terms of deciding how she is going to invest her money and what she's going to do. Now she is the kind of escort that picks her clients, and she always has 2 or 3 clients on the go at any one time, and she's very much in control of the situation. She doesn't take on a new client until she's finished with the previous one, but Ramses has got his eye on her, and he kind of manoeuvres himself into a position where Blake does not have an option but to accept him as a new client, and in fact let down any other clients that she may have, because Ramses is absolutely adamant that he should be the only man in her life, whether it be for work or not. And of course these two are absolutely go head to head. They are both extremely intelligent, like I say, and very cunning and clever, and at the top of their games in their own fields. They really give each other a run for their money, but I love how their relationship develops in a way that they both help each other and help to kind of overcome some of their kind of like, you know, insecurities or past history that's maybe stopping them from moving forward with their lives. So at the start of this video, I read that quote from Minx, which when I read the book, I found it very, very powerful when she talked about falling in love with Ramses and how it made her feel. Now, one of the reasons I didn't give this book 5 stars, for me when I rate books, I kind of very much rate about how I'm feeling and how I'm feeling when I'm reading the book. And while I did absolutely love the story, it was extremely well written and there was some poignant moments. Overall, this book felt to me very, like there was a sense of melancholy and sadness that kind of carried through this whole book, because both Ramses and Blake were kind of, you know, pining for a life that they really wanted. They didn't think they could have, longing for each other before they could accept each other and come to terms with kind of what they had together, and really kind of like overcoming their past in their own minds. So like I said, I thought it was absolutely brilliant, really, really well done. But overall, there was just, like I said, this sense of melancholy or sadness. And for me, when I rate a book 5 stars, I just like to feel a little bit more uplifted, like I'm smiling more throughout the book, like I really, really can't wait to be with the couple. And I didn't necessarily feel like that with this particular book. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say on it. If you've read it, then please comment in the comments box down below and let me know if you kind of agree with me or if you think I'm totally crazy. But that's kind of how I felt as I was reading that one. Then I moved on to another book, which was actually a short story, just 60 pages, and it was Defiled by Poppy Aster. This author is also known as Daisy O'Donnell, and as she writes as Daisy O'Donnell, she does kind of alien romances, like human abduction romances, and she's done the Earth's Bounty series. But she's started a new pen name, Poppy Aster, and this is to do more sort of monster romances, and she's dipping her toe into the water with a new series called the Monster Gentleman's Club. And she is planning so far 3 short stories, all about the same couple. So we, in this one, Defiled is basically just part 1, and we are following Mercy and Jarek. Now, I thought this was fantastic, especially for something which was only 60 pages. I thoroughly enjoyed this one. Rated it 4 stars, but I would definitely say 4.5 stars. It wasn't quite a 5-star because it is such a short book and we haven't seen the rest of the relationship. It's not come to fruition yet. But I absolutely love this one. Read it within an hour and thoroughly enjoyed every single page. I thought she'd done a fantastic job at packing in so much into just a few, you know, a few pages, and the cliffhanger was fantastic. So essentially what this one is about is a gentleman's club for monsters. The main hero in this one, Jarek, he is essentially a werewolf, but he doesn't identify like that. He basically very much sees his shifter form as a beast, but for all intents and purposes he is a werewolf. And basically he is a member of this essentially a sex club, the Gentleman's Club, where monsters can go to bid on humans, where they can spend the night with them. The humans usually know what's going on. They do it for money, but the stipulation is that they have to do whatever the monster wants for the evening. They get paid a very generous sum of money, but the next morning they're given some sort of injection of some sort of chemical that wipes their memories, thereby preserving the identities of the monsters and protecting the monster community at large. So at the start of this one, our main heroine, Mercy, her real name is Sara, but they call her Mercy at the club. Mercy gets off at the wrong bus stop on the way home from work, and she is chased down the street by some evil looking men, and she finds herself in the sex club where they mistake her for someone who's going there to be auctioned off to a monster. They pretty quickly establish that she doesn't know what she's doing there, but they force her through this auction anyway, and Jarek is the one who kind of bids on her and wins. Very apparent very quickly to Jarek as well that she doesn't know who he is, what she's doing there, and on top of that she is also a virgin heroine as well. But at the end of the day, Jarek is a beast. He has paid for her, so he's going to go through with the evening, but it's going to be okay because she is going to be very wealthy the next morning when she wakes up, and she won't remember anything either, so no harm done, right? Now this is a fantastic cliffhanger because they spend an amazing night together. Emotions are very high. Like I say, in just 60 pages, Poppy Aster has packed so much into this, and I absolutely, even though it's basically an erotic romance, I really felt the connection between this couple, and I was like, I could not believe at the end how it ended and the cliffhanger that sets up for the second story, and I couldn't wait to read the next instalment, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. So then after that I picked up The Director by Renee Rose. Now this was completely coincidental because I picked this up on Kindle. It wasn't a Kindle Unlimited, it was actually, it's free to download this first book in her series, which is book 1 in the Chicago Bratva series, and then the rest of the series is, you know, you have to buy the ebooks, but the first one in the series is currently up for free, and I happened to read this one before I went to Rare 23 London. I didn't know the author was going to be there. It was a total coincidence, and when we got there it was actually one of the free books that you could pick up from the free book table at the book signing, and so while I was there I picked this one up and also got the author to sign it for me as well. So that was a fantastic little coincidence, and also great because I've got another book that I can hold up and show you here as well. So this is a mafia romance. It's a Russian mafia, so the Bratva, set in Chicago, and it's also kind of a one-night stand, secret baby, captor-captive arrangement, and we're following Lucy and Ravel in this one. Now Ravel is the Pacan, he's head of the Russian Bratva in Chicago, and he has gone to New York where he visits a sex club, and he happens to run into Lucy. Now she is a defense lawyer, also from Chicago, also happens to be in New York, also at the sex club, and she is looking for a dom for the evening. So these two get paired up. He's a dom, she's a sub, and they have a one-night stand. But during the one-night stand, the condom splits. However, they still go their separate ways, and when she figures out she's pregnant, she decides to keep it a secret from him because she's pretty much worked out that he is in fact part of the Russian mafia. If nothing else, his tattoos gave him away, and she just doesn't want to bring her child into that life, and she's not sure he'd make a very good father either. So she decides to keep it secret from him. But she also thinks she's never going to bump into him again because she doesn't realise that they're actually both from Chicago. She thinks he is safely in New York. Of course, that's not what happens, and a couple of months go by. Her baby bump at this point is now showing, and she takes on a new client, and he happens to come into her office with her new client because it's one of his men in his mafia organisation, and he wants her to defend him. And of course, as soon as he spots her, sees that she's pregnant, does the maths in his head, he works out the baby must be his, and then he is absolutely livid that she kept it from him, and in retribution decides he's going to kidnap her, obviously, and keep her locked in his penthouse until the baby is born, when he can take it for himself. So then they find themselves in very close proximity together, trying to figure out how they're going to co-parent, and indeed if he's even going to let her have anything to do with the baby once she's had it. So I really enjoyed this one. Thought it was really well written. We'll definitely be reading the next few books in the series as well, and would highly recommend. I gave this one a 4-star. So then after that I picked up Beautifully Cruel by J.T. Geissinger, and this is book 1 in the Beautifully Cruel series. Now it's a 2-book series following the twins Liam and Killian, and we know Killian Black because he is the ghost that kind of puffs in and out of the Queens and Monsters series. So I was very keen to read Killian's story. He keeps popping up in J.T. Geissinger's other books. He literally goes in and out. He seems to know everything. He seems to be everywhere. And we are very intrigued by him. And we know he has a lady called Jules. And so we're keen to find out how he met her, what's going on with that. So like I said, I decided I was going to dive into the prequel, as it were. Probably not a prequel as far as J.T. Geissinger is concerned, but since I read Queens and Monsters series first, this to me is kind of like going back to read the setup books of how the rest of the series came about. But in this first book, we're actually following Killian's brother Liam and Truvy. This is an Irish mafia romance. We definitely have a pioneering hero. And it's also one of those books where they kind of make a bit of a deal to be together for a certain amount of time, and then he's going to let her go. So essentially what it's about is Liam Black. He is head of the Irish mafia, and he has spotted this girl called Truvy. She is a waitress at a diner, and every now and then he can't help himself, but he frequents this diner late at night. He always sits there at table in her area, has a cup of coffee, doesn't speak, but sits there staring at her for several hours before he leaves. Now he kind of over the year, he's come and gone, but he's always been keeping an eye on her, and he's been pining for Truvy all this time. Just something about her that he can't shake. He knows he shouldn't be going back to the diner. He knows he's putting her in danger potentially if his enemies find out that he's got an obsession with her, but nevertheless he cannot keep himself away. Now, Truvy also really likes him. She's really intrigued, but they never really speak. And one night she determines she's going to try and start up a bit of a conversation with him. Ultimately, something kicks off. She's in danger. Men attack her in the back alley of this diner where she's putting out the trash, or the rubbish, as we say in the UK. And Liam is there to step in and save her, when she kind of then figures out that maybe he is involved in things that he shouldn't be. Now, they're very attracted to each other, but he can't be with her, but he doesn't want to be without her, so he kind of makes a deal with her and says, be with me for 28 days and then we'll go our separate ways, because he can't bring her into his life and he really doesn't believe that he can love someone doing the job that he does. And she agrees, and maybe their 28 days they stick to that, and maybe they don't. You're going to have to read it to find out, but highly recommend. Love this one, 4 stars. Then I decided to have a bit of a palette cleanser, a bit of a reset, and I picked up a novella called Angel and the Alien Brute by Hattie Jacks. This one is an alien romance. Like I said, it's just a short novella, about 100 pages long, and in this one it's kind of very much fated mates, human abduction story, and a damaged hero. So in this one we're following Angel and Noor, and moves very much at pace. It is a short novella obviously, and a little bit of a taster in terms of what you can expect from Hattie Jacks's book, I assume. This is the first one I've read from her. I thought it was really well written and fun, but it moved just too fast for me. And I know it is a short book, so you have to expect that, but even then I just thought it was too quick even for the length of the book. Essentially, Angel is a human woman who's been abducted from Earth by some evil aliens, and Noor is part of a kind of a warrior race who happen to intercept the ship that she's on, kill the people on board and take all the cargo, of which obviously she is part of the cargo. And when she comes aboard, he very much smells her scent, and he's very much drawn to her and believes that she is the one for him. So it's kind of a fated mates kind of scenario. He is allowed to take her to his room on the premise that maybe he's gonna try and get some information out of her, because when they find her, they're not really sure if she is has been kidnapped by these evil aliens or if she has been sent to spy on them in some way. So it's a very, very loose argument as to why she can be in the cabin with him. But also Noor himself is a very, very damaged hero. He although he's part of this warrior race, he's one of those sorts of soldiers that's been experimented on. He's been sort of turned into this super soldier, and as a result he has these sort of rage, these moments of rage that he can't control, because he is bigger and stronger than his you know, than his peers, because he's been experimented on. But that also means that he is truly a like a fighting machine, and he has loads of like anger and rage flowing through his blood. That means that he is quite dangerous. However, she very much seems to calm his rage, and so it's beneficial again for them to kind of be in the same accommodations together. And obviously then they're in close proximity. He very much decides that she's going to be his mate and works towards that goal. It was fast-paced, fun, well written. I did enjoy it. It didn't put me off from reading any more of Hattie Jax's books. I'll definitely pick some more up in the future and see what she does with a slightly longer novel. But I rated this one 3 stars just because for me everything just moved too quickly. I think she tried to put too much in to such a short novella. So of course that didn't take me very long to get through that book, and I couldn't then not go back to the Beautifully Cruel series. So I went straight back to Cruel Paradise by J.T. Geissinger, which is book 2, and this time we are getting Killian's story finally. So this is Killian's story with Jules. Now, for reasons, Killian is now head of the Irish Mafia, and Jules is a Mafia princess herself. Her father is a very powerful mafia man, but she has very much fallen out with her dad, and she's kind of gone her own way. She's sort of on the run. She's hiding under a new identity, and she's also got some friends in a very similar situation as her, and together they form this sort of like vigilante group, a criminal group, where they steal from the rich and give to the poor essentially. And so Jules and Killian's paths cross when Jules goes to one of his warehouses, breaks in, steals a truckload of baby nappies, and then distributes them to kind of a women's shelter or orphanage, can't remember exactly what, but basically redistributes these nappies somewhere else. Now, it's a fairly low cost heist, isn't it? A trailer full of nappies, but still he is not too happy that she's stolen them regardless, and he's now got her in his sights, and decides to track her down. He instantly falls for Jules. He is very attracted to her, very intrigued by her, and he very much tries to wear Jules down, and she ends up needing a bit of a break and going away to this kind of holiday resort. I don't know if it's a holiday resort, but she goes to the coast. She stays a week in a hotel, and he happens to follow her there, and they kind of agree to this arrangement where they're going to spend the week together, but at the end of it he's going to go his own way. Very similar to the first book. That may or may not last. They may or may not stick to that, yeah, that's all I'm going to say on that. But again, absolutely fantastic. Love to see Killian, love to see Jules. We get some cameos from all of the other characters, yeah, we definitely see some characters from the Queens and Monsters series, which we have grown to know and love a great deal. So then after that I stuck with the Mafia theme. I moved on to Cruel King by R.G. Angel, and this is the 3rd and final book in her Cosa Nostra series. It's a Mafia romance set in New York. Now this series overall has been a bit lukewarm for me. I really liked the first book, which was a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and the second book fell a little bit flat. It was okay, I rated it 3 stars, but I was really intrigued to read book 3 because the hero in this one is Matteo, and he is known to be very, very cruel, very, very dark, no heart whatsoever, a little bit of a psychopath. And I was very, very intrigued by his character and personality and what the author would do with his love story, or how she'd soften him up basically into loving a woman. But unfortunately this one didn't 100% deliver on my expectations either, and I still enjoyed it, I still liked it and gave it 3 stars. Like I say, in this one we're following Matteo and Elena. Now Matteo is the capo de capo, he's head of the other sort of syndicate groups in the New York area, and he, like I say, he is a very dark hero, has a heart of ice. And then we're following the heroine Elena. Now Matteo and Elena have known each other since they're children, and they first met in Italy when they were very young. So Matteo is quite a bit older than Elena, but he knew her when she was a little girl, and they very much had a connection. And Elena's kind of been in love with Matteo since she was just about 10 years old, and he was very, very kind to her when she was growing up. But she is potentially in a lot of danger, and Matteo engineers it so that she is taken out of the life that she's in, and she gets adopted by new parents, and basically she's moved to New York, which is where she lives. And he's also had a man kind of posing as her friend throughout the years, who's really her sort of bodyguard. So she believes this bodyguard of hers is her best friend, but secretly he's working for Matteo the whole time just to keep an eye on her. Now, when people discover who she is, she becomes in danger, and she comes home one day to find her adopted parents murdered. And the bodyguard manages to rescue her, get her to safety, and of course Matteo decides that he is going to make sure that she's protected. Now, we also find out that she is the half-sister of the hero from book 1, and so when he finds out that he's got a half-sister, he very much challenges Matteo and says it's my duty to protect her. And I think this is really where the book didn't quite gel for me either, because what I was hoping for is that obviously their characters would be old friends, that she'd been in love with him since she was a girl, that he'd been watching her growing up, and that he'd fallen in love with her as a woman, but he'd been keeping her safe. And then when she got into danger, he would swoop in and kind of force her into a, you know, captive situation. Come on, I'm now going to force you to be with me in order to keep you protected, and I'm probably going to force you into an arranged marriage in order to protect you with my name, etc. Which is kind of what happens, but she spends a lot of time at her brother's house being protected there. There's not a lot of instances where Matteo and Elena are together to rebuild their relationship. He's just sort of decided he's going to marry her. She doesn't really have any choice. No conversations really take place. And I just felt that the book would have been better served if the characters had spent more time together so that they could rebuild their relationship from old. So that's all I would say about that. So overall, like I say, I did like it. I rated it 3 stars. But overall, like I say, it didn't 100% meet the expectations that I was looking for, which was very sad because I had high expectations for that one. But the next book certainly did not disappoint, and this time I read Secrets of the Brother by Zoe Blake, which is book 3 in the Cavalieri Billionaire series. Now, I won't go into too much detail on this because this is the first book that I read for my reading vlog, so if you are interested in finding out the minutiae of my thoughts around this one, then please go back and watch that blog. But all I will say is it's another great instalment in this series. I absolutely love Zoe Blake's writing. The Cavalieri men have been on point. They have been the usual obsessive, brutal, won't take no for an answer, possessive, touch it and you die kind of heroes that I absolutely love. And this one was no different. So it's definitely a dark romance. We're talking billionaires here, loads of cash, but this one was also a second chance romance. We were following Enzo and Bianca. So Enzo is one of the Cavalieri brothers. He had previously married a not so nice woman who was murdered in a previous book. Everyone thinks that Enzo has murdered her, but he actually in fact hasn't. But he was kind of forced into marrying her because he believed that she was pregnant with his child, and he desperately did not want to marry her because he was actually in love with her sister Bianca. Now Bianca was absolutely devastated when she found out that he betrayed her with her sister, and they'd ended up getting married, and so she'd gone off to New York to kind of get on with her life, you know, try and forget him and move on. But of course, when her sister is murdered and a funeral takes place, Bianca comes back to Italy for the funeral of her sister, where her path crosses again with Enzo, and the book goes from there. This series so far has been absolutely brilliant. There's a really good backstory, there's a really good story threading through all of the books, and I'm really looking forward to the next one in the series, which will be out later this year. So then the next one I also read for the reading vlog was Discarded by Poppy Aster, and this was the second part of that Monster Gentleman's Club series that I spoke about. This one was slightly longer at 70 pages and is a continuation of the story from book 1. It very much picks up from where the first book left off, so straight from the cliffhanger on to the next stage of the story, and it's absolutely fantastic, and I am eagerly anticipating the third book in that series, and I rated it 4 stars. Then I picked up the latest release from Sara, Cate, which was Antihero, and again I covered that on the reading vlog. This is book 1 in her new series, The Good Brothers. It's a contemporary romance, but it does feature kind of like a tortured hero, very much opposites attract, an age gap, and also covers a lot of religious themes. In this one we're following Adam and Sage, and Adam is the son of a preacher man. I love saying that because it's like the song, isn't it? Adam is the son of a preacher man. He is very committed to his faith. He absolutely has ambitions to follow in his father's footsteps, take over his congregation when his father retires, and in the meantime is a very skilled writer and writes sermons for his father. However, his father is actually a narcissist and a bit of a liar, and he has been using his position as a preacher for the congregation to very much take power and fame, and he just loves it when people love him, basically, and he is less committed to his faith than maybe he should be, a man in his position. Now, he has also been very much attacking the local sex clubs. He wants them shut down, and when Adam finds out that his father actually frequents one of these said sex clubs, he is devastated, angry, and decides that he's going to take revenge. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Like I say, I really enjoyed this one. It was a 4-star read. Read it on Kindle Unlimited. But if you want in-depth analysis into the plot and what goes on and how I felt about it, check out my reading vlog as well. And then the last one that I read for the reading vlog was Forgivable Sins by Adelaide Forrest, and this is book 2 in the Blandy crime series. It's another mafia romance, and it's very much best friends to lovers. So we're in this one, we were following Angelino and Samara, and Angelino has been in love with Samara pretty much his whole life. He was very much persuaded by his father that he could not marry Samara because she was the daughter of the housekeeper, and that was just not the right person. You know, she didn't have enough social standing, she didn't have the right standing in the mafia in order for Angelina to be with her, and so his father definitely persuaded him against it, or he issued threats basically that she wouldn't be safe, and so he stayed away, and eventually Samara got married to someone else, and was not nice to her at all. Yeah, so when he finds that Samara has been mistreated by her husband, he decides enough is enough and he's going to take her for himself. Now, I really enjoyed this one. I really liked the first book in this series by Adelaide Forrest, although it did pick quite a lot of holes in the plot. And again with this one, I rated it 4 stars, really enjoyed it, but I felt that there was quite a lot of unnecessary miscommunication between the couple, with Angelina assuming that she knew things that perhaps she didn't know, and felt it was sort of unnecessary in the broader scale of things. But I enjoyed it enough that I moved straight on to book 3 in the series, which was Grieved Loss. Obviously another mafia romance, and this one is slightly different because it is a stalker romance, a bit of a captive situation going on, forced marriage, forced proximity, in fact forced pretty much everything. Now, I was really looking forward to this story because we met the main hero Riker in book 1. We know he's the enforcer for this mafia syndicate. He is also a very scarred and troubled hero, and the heroine is Cate. Now, she was married to a police officer and has 2 children. But the police officer, he was a dirty cop. He was taking cash from the mafia in order to, you know, cover up evidence and stuff like that. And when he first kind of got in with them, Riker was sent to kind of spy on him, look him over, you know, like find out what was going on in his past, just to make sure that he was going to be trustworthy. And as a result, he spent a lot of time watching Cate, and he became obsessed with her. Now, he would never have done anything to the husband, even though he didn't really think the husband was treating her right. But when the husband dies in the line of duty, this is the perfect opportunity for Riker to step in and take what he believes is his. And so he allows Cate 12 months of mourning. And once her 12 months are up, he's spent the last 12 months preparing. He's got the room set up in his house. He's got everything ready. And one day, literally, he goes in, he takes her and says, no, you're coming with me, and your kids are coming with me, and because you love your kids so much, you're not going to put up a fight because you don't want your kids to see you upset, do you? And so for the sake of her kids, she kind of goes along with it, and he railroads her into everything. He railroads her into sleeping in his room, forcing her to marry him, forcing her to give up work, forcing her to, you know, have a bodyguard so she can't go out anywhere without his permission. Literally everything is forced upon her. She has no choice whatsoever. And this is again one of my problems with this book. So again, it was another story that I absolutely loved. I thought Adelaide Forrest did a great job. The writing is great. The characters were fantastic. But this was only still a 4-star read for me, and the reason it wasn't a 5-star is just because this hero never bent at all in any way. I really like an obsessive possessive hero that doesn't take no for an answer at the start of the story, but over time I like to see him, you know, soften and relent until the woman gets all the power. But in this book, I felt like Riker never gave an inch, to the point that he even forced her into having a tattoo. And she literally had no choice. She wasn't even able to have a conversation with him about what he wanted her to do and kind of like put her side of the story over. It was always about what he wanted, what he needed. And even though she came to love him, was happy with him, and kind of had this discussion in her own mind, she knew it was wrong because he had all this power. She could never say no. She never had got her own way, or was allowed to make her own choices. But ultimately, she decided that she loved him enough that she was going to put up with that, and that was all fine. And like I said, I did like this couple. I really did like Riker, but I just felt that he never once relented, even to the point of the end of this book. I still felt that she would never get to have her own way. He would always take choices away from her, and so that was one of the things I didn't 100% like about this book overall. But still, thoroughly enjoyable read, and would recommend. So then on to another novella. This one was called The Weekend Girlfriend by Emily Walters. I saw this on Amazon. It was one of those, you know, Amazon was just recommending some books to me, and I saw that it was fake dating. It was a novella, and I thought that would be good because it's a short read. I love a fake dating story. It's one of my favourite tropes, and so I decided to give it a go. As well as fake dating, it was also a workplace romance. He was sort of, I wouldn't say he was a billionaire, but he was certainly a millionaire. He had his own yacht. In this one we were following Jessica and Kyle. So Kyle was obviously the boss. He is a very good lawyer, and Jessica's been working for him for about 3 years as his paralegal. Now Kyle has got a bit of a revolving door when it comes to women, and he's always, you know, got a date on the go, never really sticks to the same woman twice. And in fact recently he has been sleeping with his secretary, but now their relationship is over, so the secretary has left his employment and now he is without a secretary. So he gets Jessica to not only do her paralegal jobs but also some personal assistant work for him as well, which includes sorting out a dating issue. He's got a dating clash where he's agreed to go out with 2 women on the same night, and he wants her to let one of them down, send her flowers to apologise, and make sure that he knows the name of the person that he's actually seeing for the night. However, she gets distracted while she's trying to arrange these flowers. She mixes up the women and he ends up going out on a date with a woman, and he calls her by the wrong name, which of course means the date doesn't go too well. And he then storms to her flat after this date, banging on the door, really angry, saying, "You've completely embarrassed me. How could you be so incompetent?" And she gets really outraged and said, "You know, you're just using and abusing me. This is not the job that I signed up for. I'm not your bloody personal assistant, so on your bike," and I quit. Now, he goes off with his tail between his legs, but he comes back the following day and says, "You can't quit just yet. You need to give me 30 days notice, but I'm prepared to pay you double the amount, so I'll pay you 2 months' wages if you'll come to my sister's wedding with me and pretend to be my date. Since after all, I was going to ask the woman I was seeing last night to come with me, and you kind of ruined that for me because, you know, I ruined my date." So this is a very tenuous reason to be fake dating. It was a very tenuous reason, I thought, for him to be so angry with her that he'd storm round to her flat at night, and really tenuous that she would quit her job over it. But anyway, she agrees to fake date, and then he sort of says, well, it's next weekend, and so therefore we need to spend some time over the next week together to get to know each other before we go, otherwise my mum and dad are going to figure it out. Of which they do, and then they go on some dates, and then eventually they get to the wedding, and of course his family is not very nice, but she stands up for him, yada until obviously they get their happy ever after. Now overall, again, it was an okay read. I rated this one 3 stars. I did I guess enjoy parts of it. And it wasn't even so much that the story went really quickly. I thought it didn't, but I felt that they got to their sexual relationship too quickly. None of it really made any sense, and even the way they got together at the end also didn't really make sense. So like I said, this one was a 3-star read for me. Then the next book I read was Gloam by Lily Mayne, and this was a monster romance. It's also an MM romance, post-apocalyptic. There is definitely an age gap since Gloam is quite old. Fantasy romance, I guess you could say, and it's book 4 in the Monstrous series, and in this one we're following Gloam, who is the monster, and then Rig. Read this one on Kindle Unlimited and overall rated it 4 stars. I've really been enjoying this series by Lily Mayne. I've been working my way through the books quite slowly. I maybe read one every couple of months or so. I've really enjoyed every single one. I was really intrigued about Gloam as a monster because we'd seen him in some of the other books. He is the big monster that has been chained to Mary's caravan. So we know that there is a character called Mary. She's been going across the waste in a caravan, but she's also collecting monsters for her menagerie. She's got a bit of a monster zoo going on, and she very much had her eye on the Reek which was the monster from book 3. So she is at this human camp where she's trying to get the rig and capture him, and so her caravan is sitting outside the camp, and Gloam is very much her prisoner. He has a like a metal helmet on. It's like a cage around his head. You can't see his face, he cannot talk, and in addition to that she's got him chained to the side of the caravan with very big chains with hoops that actually go around his spine, so they're embedded into the skin and go around his spine to keep him in place. So he is not in a good place, but he's forced to protect Mary, so that's her protection as she's going along in her caravan. And Rig has very much taken a shine to Gloam. He is very, very worried about him, and he wants to try and figure out a way that he can release him from his captivity and rescue him. And the way they do that, Rig very much starts to get to know Gloam by writing in a notebook, and he can write back. But there seems to be some sort of spell on him or some sort of curse where he's unable to tell Rig why he's got this cage on his head or what he can do to escape. So Rig kind of has to figure it out. And in order to do that, when Mary realises that she's not going to be able to get the Rig, she decides to carry on her merry way, and therefore Rig goes on, asks if he can join her, pretending that he wants to help her with her menagerie and stuff, and that he's really interested in it all, but really he's going to go on the travels with Gloam so we can find out more about him and try and figure out a way to rescue him. Like I said, I absolutely love this one, really, really good, and we'll definitely keep going with the rest of the series. So the next one I read was Sacrifice of Sea by Anna Fiore and Amy Pennza. It's a fantasy romance, a fairy tale retelling of The Little Mermaid. It's a dark romance, and this particular one is an MMM romance. It's book 3 in the author's The Beautiful Nightmares series, and I've really been enjoying this series overall. So far we have had Little Red Riding Hood, Rapunzel, and now The Little Mermaid. And the next book in the series, which is out really soon, is Beauty and the Beast, which is the one that I have been waiting for, so really looking forward to that. This was a very, very interesting retelling of The Little Mermaid. I thought it was done really, really well and really enjoyed it. I downloaded it on Kindle Unlimited and I gave this one 4 stars. So in this one we're following Triton. So he is a merman, he is head of the Sea Syndicate, and he has had a lover for many years called Ari. So Ari and Triton have been lovers for many years, and Ari is also his second in command. You know, has been by his side for many, many years. Then we have Urson, and Urson is an octopus man, an octo-man. He is a sea witch with a lot of power. Now his father Kralik was best friends with Triton and Ari when they were growing up, and he was a very, very powerful sea witch. Now his power very much corrupted him, and he went from being a really good friend to Triton and Ari to being extremely power hungry, extremely violent, very like a bit of a zealot, and he wanted to take down all of the other syndicates and take over. He was also really, really threatening the Triton's own position, because you could see that he was just moments away really from taking power for himself and you know, taking over everything. Now Triton and Ari could not let this happen, so they killed Kralik, and they stole his power. And they've captured it in a necklace that hangs around their neck, and they share this burden between them. So and over the years the burdens have been getting heavier and heavier, but Triton has been using the power of the sea witch in this necklace around his neck to control other enemies in the waters. Meanwhile, Urson was Kralik's son, and from a very young boy they were afraid that he would have the same power as his father, so they have kind of kept him away from the rest of the creatures in the sea. He's got his own little cave. He is very, very much the Little Mermaid character. He's a cross between obviously Ursula and the Little Mermaid character, because he lives in his own little cave. He collects human things. He calls them thingamybobs and whatsits and all of that good stuff. And he loves all these treasures and everything. But he's a really, really kind soul, and he loves taking care of his garden and digging for human treasure. But as he grows up, he starts to come into his power, and when Triton and Ari find out that he's coming into his power, they decide that they're going to go and visit him to see just how powerful he is and if he poses a threat to their kingdom, with the aim maybe of having to kill him if he seems that powerful. But the moment they lay eyes on him, they realise that he is nothing like his father. He's a very, very sweet and gentle creature. But nevertheless, he still does have a lot of power, so they kind of work together to get him to explore that power, to control the power, but also do it in the right way. The three of them start a relationship together, so Urson very much joins their, because they're already lovers, so Urson joins them, and it's a very, very sweet and endearing relationship that they've developed together. Of course, they are keeping a secret from Urson. They haven't told him what's happened to his father, or that they, in fact, that they were the ones that killed him. And so we know that when this comes out, Urson probably is not going to be too happy about it. Now, I was nervous about this because I hate miscommunication in books. I hate it when characters are keeping secrets from another character, and you know they're just about to tell him, but then he finds out. And then he goes mad, and then they split up, and it creates all this angst and drama that doesn't really need to happen. But like I say, I was quite nervous about the way that this would be handled, but I thought it was done really, really well. Yeah, and just thoroughly enjoyed this book, and like I say, rated it 4 stars, and would highly recommend this series as a whole, and looking forward to Beauty and the Beast. So I think this is going to be an extremely long video, but you'll be pleased to know that I'm on the very last book. Now, the last book I want to talk about, and the last book I finished in July, literally on the very last day, was this book here, The Host by Stephenie Meyer. Now, this is a very old book, written in 2008 by Stephenie Meyer, who's obviously best known for the Twilight series. But I absolutely love this book. As you can see, it's absolutely gigantic. It is 620 pages long in total. And I first read this very, very many years ago. I've read a couple of this physical copy a couple of times. It is one of my favourite stories of all time. And ironically, it isn't even really a romance. I would say it's a love story. And there's absolutely no spice in this one whatsoever. So it's a very long book for being no spice. One of the main reasons that I love this book so much is because of the audio book version. And that is how I mainly consume this book. So when I first got into audiobooks several years ago, I thought, oh, I'll pick up the audiobook for The Host, since I really like that story. And the lady who narrates it is a lady called Cate Redding. Now, she has got a very unique and interesting voice. And for some people, I think when you first hear it, you might think, oh, I'm not sure I can listen to a whole book narrated by this person. It is a very unique voice. But there's something about it, for me, that is very soothing and calming and very de-stressing. And I generally only listen to audiobooks in the car, when I'm driving to and from work, or when I'm travelling for work. And in the past, I used to do about an hour and a half, about an hour there and an hour back. So between an hour and a half and 2 hours of travel every day. And I very much listen to The Host. Now, it's a very long book. The narration is about 23 hours. And I listen to it at 1 times speed, just because I really like Cate Redding's voice. And the soothing quality. So I felt like, because I was reading it to and from work, it really put me in the right mindset to calm me down after work, to de-stress me before I got home. And as a result, so if you're thinking 2 hours, 2 hours of travel time a day, 23-hour book, it took me about 2 to 2.5 weeks to get through this book. But I have listened to it countless times, like tens of times, I don't even know the number, but often I would finish the book and start it again from the beginning. So I feel like I know this book really, really well. The characters feel so real to me, and I just love everything about it. If you haven't read this, what I will say, it's a very, I don't even want to say slow burn because there's no spice in it. It's a slow moving book. It's character driven. It feels like not a lot happens. It's very, very descriptive. A lot of stuff goes on in the character's mind. There's a lot of silences in this book. Not actual silences, obviously there's loads of words, but there's lots of space in this book where characters can really grow and develop and change. And the thing is that even the small actions of these characters have really big consequences, which is what I love about it so much. So anyway, I've been speaking for 4 minutes and I haven't even told you what this one is about. So essentially this is The Host by Stephanie Meyer, and the concept here is that there is an alien species which they call the Souls. They are small parasites that can go into the brains of their hosts and take over the bodies. Now, this group of aliens have recently travelled to Earth. They have pretty much assimilated the whole of Earth, so pretty much every human on Earth now has a parasite in their head. And when they do it, for the majority of humans, the humans themselves, they disappear, the souls very much take over and become their hosts, become their bodies. So it's the host, and so it's the body and soul becomes one thing. However, there is a group of humans that are still alive, still very much kicking, and they are, you know, fighting for survival basically. And one of these humans is a lady called Melanie Strider, a young woman really, Melanie Strider. Now she has a boyfriend, if we want to call him that, I think soulmate, love of her life, Jared, and a brother, Jamie, who mean the whole world to her. Now unfortunately Melanie gets captured at the start of this book, and she gets a parasite put into her head, and the parasite that they put into her head is a parasite that they call Wanderer. Now Wanderer is a very, very special soul indeed, because she started on the Origin, which is really, really rare. So the Origin is the planet where the aliens came from, and she has travelled more widely than any other soul. And essentially what happens is they take over a body and they can live forever as long as they've got a you know, a healthy host. So as soon as the host body is dying, they can be taken out of the body and put into a new one. So the Wanderer, the soul, she has been alive for thousands of years, and she has lived on 9 planets. And that is more widely travelled than any other soul, because normally they only try out 1 or 2 bodies and settle on a planet. They don't really go too far, but she has been wandering the stars for thousands of years and has finally made her way to Earth, and she's put into Melanie's body. The thing is, Melanie refuses to disappear, and so Wanderer has to end up sharing the body with Melanie. Now Melanie can't control her own body, but she can certainly control her mind. And Wanderer is very, very unhappy about this at first. She's very distressed about it. It's never happened to her before. She thinks she's weak. She must be a weak soul because she can't subdue a human host. But over time they form a relationship together. Melanie shares Jamie and Jared with her in a way that means that Wanderer falls in love with them. And while Melanie's been working hard to keep it a secret where these two might be, because she doesn't want them to be captured and taken over for themselves, ultimately she ends up trusting Wanderer, and they go on an adventure together to find them. Of course, when they do end up finding them, Jared is not going to be too happy that the love of his life is now trapped inside her own body, and that there is an alien in there who's taken over. And the chain of events, what happens after she finds Jared and Jamie and other humans that are still free humans, how those humans come to terms with her being in their community, how she makes friends with Melanie, how Jared really resists at first and to the point where he doesn't even believe her story. Just everything about this book is amazing. I don't think I'm doing it justice. It's really hard to explain. As you can see, it's a very long book. There's a lot that goes on. Like I said at the beginning, it's very slow, and it is. It's all character driven. A lot of the stuff goes on in the head, but the impact that Wanderer makes on this human community and what she comes to learn about humanity and what the souls have done to humanity is absolutely fantastic. And like I say, in particular the narration, I think, by Cate Redding. She's a solo narrator. She does all of the voices. To me, they're very distinct when she talks in the different voices. And I just absolutely love this, and I don't think I'll ever stop listening to it. And I really want to. I've actually bought another copy of this book because I wanted to preserve the original, but I've recently bought a new copy of this book because I want to annotate it. There is some amazing quotes in here that I really kind of want to capture and be able to flick to whenever I want to. Anyway, finished the month on a high. It took me 2 months to get through it because I didn't do as much travelling in the last couple of months as I have done in the past. But I finally got there, finally got through it, and absolutely loved it. So 5-star read for sure. So there we have it. Hopefully I will cut that down because I think it is extremely long. I've gone through 2 batteries on my camera. But that is my reading wrap up for July. Thank you very much for watching. If you made it this far, a huge thank you and round of applause. You deserve an absolute medal. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Please put a comment in the comment box down below to let me know what you've been reading in the month of July, and if you've read any of these books, and what you thought of them. And if you want to see more content from me, remember to subscribe to the channel. I'll say goodbye for now, but thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Particularly the Leviathans. So particularly the, I still can't say it. Particularly the Leviathans. Yeah, so in particular the, so I liked it so much that I moved on to Grieved, Loss, and this one, liked it so much, in fact, that I moved on to book 3, which was Grieved, Loss by Adelaide Forrest, and this is book 3 in the Blandy Crime series. Obviously, I've just said I moved on to book 3. In this one, we're following Angel and Noor, or Noor. I'm going to say Noor. Oh, couldn't read my writing then. Just shut up, Helen. Just shut up. Right. And in this one, we're following Liam's brother. And in this one, we're following Killian's brother Liam. Struggles with his kind of like he struggles with his, what does he struggle with? He's struggling with his recovery, basically.